You know, for all the hate that Xbox gets, I think obviously the Series X and the Series S are very well put together, very good machines. And then when you see stuff like this, you realize when developers take some time and kind of do things right. And I'm not trying to make excuses. I mean, obviously you have to have, you know, a quality platform and things like that. But one thing that I will say is that we have started to see more developers to treat Xbox more fairly in terms of taking time out, and that's something that Microsoft's going to have to reckon with later. You know, if they truly don't care about console sales or whatever, I think you have to care about console sales to some kind of extent, right? Because otherwise third parties probably won't care about putting their games on your platform. So it's sort of this weird situation. But now we have this thing with Prince of Persia, this new game, which, by the way, I tried out the demo and I thought it played very, very well. Like, I'm surprised, color me shocked, you know, kind of just one of those things. But anyway, the Lost Crown, 120 frames on Series X and on Series S. Well, Series X, excuse me, 60 frames, but 120 on the Series X. Very impressive. Much more stable on Xbox than it is PS5. So Ubisoft's new Prince of Persia title officially arrives next Thursday, with media going hands-on with the game this week ahead of launch. It's already been established going down very well with critics so far, and that extends to tech outlet Digital Foundry. In their new look at Lost Crown, Digital Foundry says that the game is masterfully deployed across all platforms, including Xbox Series X and S. In fact, Microsoft's high-end machine seems to be the pick of the litter, delivering a version that sits closer to a full 120 frames per second target than any other platform. And I quote, "When playing on PlayStation 5 on Xbox Series X, you're in for a treat. The Lost Crown supports up to native 4K at 120 frames per second. Granted, you'll need HDMI 2.1 compatible TV to display this, but trust me, it makes a big difference. 60 frames per second is a walk in the park for PS5 and Series X, and even at 4K 120, they both do pretty well. But Xbox is definitely closer to the full 120 target. VRR is even a greater leveler, and both of the premium current-gen consoles look pretty much alike. But if you're sensitive to judder and your display 120 Hz doesn't extend to VRR, 60 is potentially what you might be preferring." Xbox Series X gets a win over the PS5 in terms of a more steady frame rate here. Over on the Series S, we're talking 1440p at 60 frames per second, which is another solid turnout for the console. And here's what Digital Foundry tech minds think about how the all-digital Xbox handles the Lost Crown. And I quote, "If we move down the stock, Xbox Series S is the one question mark from my perspective. This one tops out at 1440p 60 frames per second. It looks great, plays great, and is more than adequate. I might argue it feels a little like a box could do better, even if 120 frames is off the table. The point about VRR stands, and allowing the game to run above 60 frames per second on a VRR display would be optimal." As for what a lot of people think about the game, you know, most outlets are giving it a 9.5, something along those lines. I think it's sitting at a 87 or something like that on Metacritic, so obviously looks like it's kind of going good across the board. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting that could come up, because let's just be honest, the Series X is a much more powerful platform than the PS5. Well, when I say much more, I mean, listen, it's a more powerful platform for sure. Hard saying exactly how much brute force it has more power than, but it definitely is capable of doing things that the PS5 really can't. The problem is that would be great if you had a console that was the lead platform on, you know, a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't look like that's the case on most games, you know. And listen, you know, Microsoft went all in on Game Pass, and you know, a lot of people on Xbox use Game Pass and buy digital stuff. So it's just one of those things where, you know, the install base is just bigger on the PlayStation side. So you have all these PlayStation, you know, gamers and things like that. And so that's where they sort of want to put their games. You know, if you have 50 million PlayStation 5s out in the world versus 30 million Xboxes, I mean, it's pretty clear sort of the way that you go there. So, you know, you go to the one with 20 more million install base. That way you could potentially sell, you know, all that many more consoles. And this is where the flaw in Microsoft's plan takes kind of precedent, because obviously they don't specifically care as much about the console sales and things like that. They downplay it a lot, which is fine. It's their prerogative. I've said this a lot too. I think it's fine that they want to kind of downplay it or whatever, or it's not as important. And to be clear, it's not really, because if you look at stuff like Starfield, that's still sold pretty well on Steam. It was like the third most, made the third most money the entire year of 2023, and it only came out, when it did, in September. So, I think that people, depending on the game, that these games still have very much every opportunity to sell extremely well. And Microsoft, I think, has come a long way with a lot of this stuff, but nice to see that Xbox has really kind of come a long way with the performance differences, and I think that's nice to see. Finally, we're starting to see some of these where it's clearly showing that Microsoft has kind of this thing where their platform is really showcasing above what the other competition is doing, and I think that's good, and more than about time, to be quite frank about it, because if you think about it, Microsoft has kind of put up with a lot of negativity lately, and they put up with a lot of kind of hate and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty clear that Microsoft has an idea, and Microsoft has some pretty good plans and things, and this is exactly why I think that it's important for people to kind of maybe give them more of a chance. People don't seem too intent on letting Xbox have a chance for stuff. So when there's some of these negative things that come out, I think that it's just unfortunate. But I love what Microsoft is doing for the most part. That's not to say that I love everything that they're doing, but I do think that they've come a long way from where they used to be, and I think that is more than obvious. So we'll see what happens in the long term, but I really hope that people kind of come around to this game. Like I think this game is probably going to be pretty damn good. I was thinking about picking it up based off the demo alone, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. I appreciate it. I hope you guys all have a great, fantastic day. I'm Crap Gamer. This has been Crap Gamer Reviews. If you enjoyed my content, maybe consider subscribing and even liking my video. It does help out quite a bit. So I want to say thank you guys. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.